Dandavat pranams, Dandavat pranams. So today, 7th of February, 2024, and the Avirbhav, appearance day of Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Triyakram Maharaj. So today we'll say a few words in his praise, offer some Pushpanjali, and then we'll resume our Jaiva Dharma study. And we'll have a kirtan first. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari O Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Danandana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari O Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari O Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Bihari O Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Mo Hare O Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare O Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare O Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai. O Jaya Sachi Nandan Jaya Gauda Hari, Sachi Nandan Jaya Gauda Hari. Sachi Nandan Jaya Gauda Hari, Sachi Nandan Jaya Gauda. O Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Chi Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhabhika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nityananda Rai Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaurahari Ki Jai Jai Vrishabhananandini Vajeshwari Radharani Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Surabhi Kunj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astodhar Sarashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astautar Sarashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj Goswami Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astautar Sarashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikram Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astautar Sarashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astautar Sarashishimat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astautar Sarashishimat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Paramahamsa Bhagavat Srila Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudiya Prantaracharya Ki Jai Jai Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamanand Prabhu Treya Ki Jai Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shibata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai. Namacharya Shilharadas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Siga Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Shri Antadweep Mayapur Simantadweep Gautam Dweep Madhya Dweep Kola Dweep Ritu Dweep Jana Dweep Motan Dweep Rudra Dweep Atmakanava Dweep Dham Ki Jai. Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dwadasa Varmatmika Shri Brajamandal Ki Jai. Jai Radhakund, Shamakund, Ganga Devi, Jamuna Devi, Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Brinda Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Shrimati Purnamasi Devi Yogamaya Maharani Ki Jai. Jai Gopishwa Mahadev Ki Jai. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai. Ketra Mandal Ki Jai. Sarva Vigna Vinashakari Shri Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakta Pravara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Chari Dham Ki Jai. Chari Sampradaya Ki Jai. Chari Acharya Ki Jai. Akara Matraj Shri Chaitanya Mat Ki Jai. Shri Keshav Ji Gaudiya Mat Ki Jai. Shri Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gauda Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namaha Priya Surupe Daita Surupe Prema Surupe Sahajabi Rupe Nijana Rupe Prabhueka Rupe Tatana Rupe Swavilasa Rupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Kurunai Vartino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundaratu Dikatamba Sadipita Sada Hridare Kandare Spuratu Vasachinandanaha Yam Pravajantam Anapetyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Tarabo Benedustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Shiptascha Karmadita Rangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Paradram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Naimam Charantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandava Pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And today I'm offering my Dandavat pranams profusely unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nityalila Pravishta Om Asto Taratara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Shila Churikram Maharaj. And again my Dandavat pranams to Nama Om Vishnu Nama Om Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gauda Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Vrayate Shila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, and all our Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Yes, so today is a very special day, celebrating the appearance, the Avirbhav of Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikram Maharaj. When my Param Gurudev, Srila Nityalila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj left this world, he had made 3 sannyasis to carry forward his mission of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. That is what his mission is called, Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. And they were Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Narayan Maharaj, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikram Maharaj. And the 3 of them together had such a personal, good relationship, which is everything, actually, because they had been trained from early young age by their beloved Gurudev. So they had very much cemented their sambandha with each other. When my Gurudev first came to the Mutt, he describes that Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikram Maharaj completely took care of him. Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, he was like the senior person. He came to the mutt when he was about 8 years old, 9 years old. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was present at that time. But then he took shelter of Srila Bhakti Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj was the most senior. And but my Gurudev was placed in the hands of Srila Trivikram Maharaj to guide him and teach him kirtan, teach him so many areas of mutt life. Because when you just come to mutt life to begin with, it can be very confusing. There's many different considerations we have to appreciate and work with. It's a dramatic change from the household life where Srila Narayan Maharaj had been living. But when Srila Bhakti Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj left this world, then the three of them, Srila Vamana Maharaj, Srila Trivikram Maharaj, and Srila Narayan Maharaj, they decided that only Srila Vamana Maharaj would initiate. And they were both very happy with that. So for many years, my Gurudev never initiated. But then in 94, 95, when so many Western devotees began coming to my Gurudev in Mathura, because my Gurudev was looking after the Mathura Mutt, and Srila Vamana Maharaj was stationed more or less in the Navadvip, the Devananda Gaudiya Mutt. And Srila Trivikram Maharaj, he was staying in different places, Chunchura and different places in Bengal. And Srila Trivikram Maharaj, he would help manage a lot of affairs. He would manage the book publications, things like this. He was a very cultured man. He was a musician previously. And when he spoke English, he spoke in a very cultured way. He didn't speak in a broken way with any sort of accent. He was speaking completely fluent English, which indicates a respectable education. So he was an educated personality and very loving, warm type of personality. And he just decided that he wasn't going to initiate anybody in this life. He just decided that. But he decided that he would give all his support to Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj and, of course, Srila Trivikram Maharaj. So he would go between these two personalities and offer his support in various ways. And I can remember when he used to come to our Brajamandal parikramas, he was a little bit older than my Gurudev, and he would always take the side of Brajendra Nandan Shyam Sundar. My Gurudev would always be proclaiming the glories of Radhika, and he would sit beside him on the podium and say, "No, no, but my Krishna is better." And then they would have a beautiful exchange. And it was very, sometimes very feisty, because Srila Trivikram Maharaj was very erudite. He was a very good scholar. He understood Shastra conclusively. And they would debate, especially at Samudraga. In Samudraga, just past Champahata. After Radhakund, where we went, you keep going to the end of that road and you get to Samudraga, where the Ganges meets Navadvip. And there, always, this is where Bhimsen defeated Lakshman Sen, the ruler of that land. And that ruler, he wanted to see Krishna. He was a devotee. So this was during the Rajasuya sacrifice, when the royal horse travels around. So if anyone has any objections to accepting the rule of that personality, in this case it was Yudhisthira Maharaj, then they would have a battle. They would take that horse and then they would have a battle. So Lakshman Sen decided that he was going to use all his energy to defeat Bhimsen. It was Bhimsen who was traveling with the horse and his army in that direction. The other Pandavas, they went in different directions. So Bhimsen came and Lakshman Sen fought so ferociously because he knew that Bhimsen, being a bhakta of Krishna, would call out to Krishna. And then he would have his darshan, which is exactly what happened. Bhimsen became really pressed by Lakshman Sen and his absolute energy in battling and in fighting with him, that he called out for Krishna. But it was only Lakshman Sen who saw him directly. He saw him directly. So this was a beautiful pastime. So at this place we go called Samudraga, where this actually took place, this pastime took place. Then always traditionally on our parikrama, we'd have a debate there. Who was the better devotee? Was it Lakshman Sen or was it Bhimsen? So I think my Gurudev took the side of Bhimsen. I can't, because they would go every year. And my Gurudev would bring in all kinds of praman from Shastra to say, well, Bhimsen is the Nityasiddha Parikar, Pandavas, etc. Who is Lakshman Sen? He's just a king, etc. But he has great and Shri Trivika Maharaj would argue vehemently. And then the Parikrama party would actually divide between these two people. And they would be having this incredible debate. And it would take place every single year we went there. Even today, they still, even though those personalities aren't present, they still bring up the same topic. Who was the better devotee? And of course, one year one would win, the other next. But Srila Churikram Maharaj would never really accept defeat. And my Gurudev categorically would never accept defeat. Absolutely not. He had to be successful because he was in front of all his disciples as well. So he always had to defeat Srila Churikram Maharaj. But Srila Churikram Maharaj was so gentle that you could see the relationship was so loving between them because they had a long history of friendship for many, many years between them. But as Srila Trivikram Maharaj became older and older, he would come with us and he'd rent a small Maruti van. And he had one disciple, only one disciple. And he would travel around to all the places with us. And I can remember one year him coming and he had a little stick, a very thin stick, almost like an apology. He didn't want to have a walking stick, but he had a very skinny, like a branch practically, just enough to keep his balance when his sugar went down or his BP was going up or something, just to keep his balance. So he'd have this little stick with him just to hold on to, but in a very humble mood. And he'd travel with us to different places. And towards the end of his time, because he came maybe 5 or 6 times, 7 times when I was there, and he was always, always weeping. He was weeping so much. We'd sit down in some holy place. I can remember particularly at uh, Sanatan Goswami's Bhajan Kutia at in Vrindakund, just near that Sarovar, the large Sarovar there, and Pavana Sarovar. And I can remember one year there was just my Gurudev and Shri Trivikram Maharaj and only a few devotees, maybe 20 or 30 devotees were there. And my Gurudev passed Shri Trivikram Maharaj the microphone. And for about 4 or 5 or even 6 minutes, he just wept. He was just weeping and weeping. This demonstrates the affection in his heart was overflowing out of his eyes for Sanatan Goswami and that particular pastime place. But when he would come here to Swananda Sukata Kunj, he would sit in front of the all the devotees. There would be a huge kirtan in Swananda Sukata Kunj, maybe a few hundred devotees there, and he would be sitting in the middle with my Gurudev and just begin to weep and weep and weep and weep and weep. And then perhaps he would say a few words, and then again he would be weeping and weeping and weeping. So his moods were transferring to us, his mood of absolute honor, of absolute deep regard and respect for the holy place where we were. That's how we felt at the time. We felt completely transformed by his um, copious weeping. I mean, he was just like blubbering practically, tears coming so much. So many times he would be like that. You'd always see him wiping his eyes, wiping his eyes, wiping his eyes. This was in his very advanced stage. He just couldn't check his moods, etc. And my Gurudev was so sweet with him, so sweet they were together. Their relationship was so exemplary and so heartening for the devotees to witness, two very old devotees, the way they exchanged their moods with each other especially when my Gurudev would always proclaim Radhika's glories, and Srila Trurikram would always try to say, no, but what about this and this and this, and come in. And my Gurudev said, never, 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 and try to sort of like completely, but Srila Trurikram Maharaj would carry on. But Srila Trurikram Maharaj's English was so good. You see, my Gurudev's English wasn't as good as Srila Trurikram Maharaj's. And he would just speak so fluently, we would all understand very beautifully what he said. And he always was stitching. He'd make his own kurtas. He'd make his own little, we call them Prabhupada hats. And he would always be stitching things. If he had a hole in his cloth or anything, he'd be stitching it. He'd be sitting on his bed stitching. And he'd always have a big bag full of homeopathic remedies. He would carry a whole bag of homeopathic. Anybody who had any problem, because he was like, he wasn't guru. He wasn't alluding to that kind of place of prominence. His whole mood was humility, even though he was such a senior devotee. He was the most senior devotee. He was more senior than my Gurudev. But he would always take such a humble position. Not any forced humility. He was just humble. So he would always wanting to be helping the devotees with any ailments or any colds or cough or anything like that. He would have just the medicine for them and be giving them like that. And I can remember when we were glorifying Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in Nandagaon one year on the Parikrama. We were staying in a place called Modi Bhavan. And we were all chanting Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. And Srila Trivikram Maharaj, he didn't like it at that time. At that time, the Gaudiya Math hadn't become familiar with the Western devotees chanting the name of their Param Gurudev, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, meaning Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. They hadn't become familiar with that. So Srila Trivikram Maharaj, he was objecting to us chanting so much like that. But then my Gurudev was very merciful, and he realized that all the Westerners' hearts were fully devoted to Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and they were chanting Prabhupada's name. Anyway, I can just remember that sort of change or shift in consciousness when Srila Bhakti Vedanta Trivikram Maharaj accepted the fact that the Westerners, they have their Prabhupada also. He accepted that, but it took some time, a few days of struggling, and he was objecting before. But then he accepted, and it was very beautiful. And I also remember at that time, this was perhaps maybe 96 or 97, something like that. And I can remember, no, must have been 96, must have been. Because I remember my Gurudev was sitting giving his class, and he said, and I take shelter of my Shiksha Guru, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he'd never said that before. And Srila Trikram Maharaj, he looks at him, what? What did you just say? Like that. And I never forget the look he gave him. Like this was a new conception that Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj was accepting formally in front of a huge assembly of devotees, the Shiksha discipleship of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So this was in preparation for his Western tour, that he was always going to present himself. And his mood, my Gurudev, was that Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, because Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was the bosom friend of his Gurudev, of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. They were bosom friends. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was like his guru, in fact, even though Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was living outside the temple previously, like a householder, and he would just come to the mat periodically. But he was a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So because of the great affection that he had with Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, then my Gurudev considered him his worshipable superior. And he would honor him in that way. Actually, my Gurudev was the one who encouraged him to come out of that room in Mathura and take shelter in the Mathura Mat. And a short while later, take sannyas from Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. So that was my Gurudev that did like that. So this mood was there of great honor for Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada from Srila Narayan. But Srila Trivikram Maharaj hadn't had the same type of exposure as he had had, Srila Narayan Maharaj had had. So there was some um, difference that had to be reconciled. But we saw how that mood, we saw the greatness of Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Maharaj, except that the Westerners, in fact, do have a place on the world stage of the Vaishnavas. Because prior to that, the Westerners hadn't been considered in such high esteem because there were many examples of the Westerners coming and simply not being trained at all, like carrying their shoes in their backpacks into the temples and all kinds of things that they didn't know. They hadn't been trained or what we were supposed to do. We had no guidance before, limited guidance. So the um, traditional Gaudiya Math devotees, the Indians, they had seen us behaving like this. So their respect and regard for us wasn't so high. But when Srila Narayan Maharaj embraced us and accepted us, then Srila Trivikram also did the same like that. And but he was so generous hearted. I can remember personally the very first time I ever met him would have been about 94, 93, 94. I was walking up some stairs to my Gurudev's room in Devananda Gaudiya Math, and he was on the ground floor, Srila Trivikram Maharaj. And he just, as with some other people, he just called us into his room. I thought, who's this devotee? What does he want? Because he had no cloth on for sannyasa or anything. And he was speaking in such a familiar way and such good English. Anyway, we came into his room, sat down, and said, so who are you? Where are you from? Everything like this. Are you going to see that man upstairs? He said. Like everything, he was supporting my Gurudev, but just his whole mood was very jovial and very sweet, but very profound at the same time. He would confront very strongly any apasiddhanta that he detected or any deviation that he detected, because he was completely Shastravit. He totally knew Shastra. So any anomaly, any discrepancy, he would jump on it immediately. And my Gurudev was the same. So between them, they would create a very good, pure mood between them, both of them. There was no um, deviation from their nishta and their focus in pleasing their Gurudev. This was their only desire. And I can remember many times, or a few times, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, he would come also to the parikrama, and they would all three be the same. Their nishta and their focus for their guru was unwavering. It was remarkable because these three personalities were very different, but they described as the three pillars of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. They carried the whole move, because at that time, we remember when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had left this world, there was great fighting between the mutts and so on. Court cases were flying around and stuff like that. And then when my Param Gurudev left, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, everything sort of initially went down, but these three together, they just formed a single unit and they pushed on through. They kept the parikramas going. They kept the book publishing going. They kept the preaching standard up very high, and it was due a lot to Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Maharaj, because he was like the person between my Gurudev and Srila Vamana Maharaj. He was like the manager. He was always arranging things, making sure everything was going smoothly, making sure all the devotees had sufficient funds and all on the ground level, more or less. And when he was preparing to leave this world, actually, he told us even before that, he told us early on, he said his very famous statement. It's so beautiful. He said, when I leave this world, I want to leave alone and I want to leave unknown. These two things, alone and unknown. This is a great aspiration, to be fearless, not to think you have to leave with a crowd, and not to feel that everyone knows you and your reputation, is going to carry on somewhere or other. Yes, and they're going to glorify you, etc. Yes, exactly. Yes, they will. They will. They will. Because history, time will always change it around. Everyone will see you in the most positive life historically. But Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Maharaj was a most down to earth, incredibly beautiful, accessible personality. Because his English was so good that we could feel very comfortable in conversing with him, speaking with him. And just, I just have such um, profound feelings of um, regard and respect for him. And on this day of his appearance, I'm offering all my Pushpanjali at his lotus feet and ask him to please forgive any offenses that I unknowingly made during his pastimes where I was present, and to please bless me with the sort of unwavering humility and unwavering devotion that he demonstrated in his life. His samadhi is very, very beautiful. His samadhi is built separately from the mutt, and you can go there today. It's very beautifully decorated and painted. It's just beside, it's about a mile from the Devananda Gaudiya mutt. And it's a beautiful, elaborate structure. I'll send you a video of it. I'll put a video on our WhatsApp link. But there was a devotee from Bangalore, South India, and he shipped up by train all the various parts of the samadhi. So it's a very, very elegant samadhi, but it's all alone in a field, in a big field, and it's completely alone. There's no other samadhis there, not at the moment anyway, but which is very interesting because that was his desire, to leave this world alone and unknown. So I'm very grateful to have an opportunity to speak his glories to a limited degree, but his glories are endless, and particularly his demonstration of humility and compassion. These two broad qualities he just exuded, and by his constant emotional moods at all the holy places that we saw him at, we could appreciate his very, very deep, deep, dedicated devotion to Sri Radha and Krishna, an absolutely remarkable personality. Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Maharaj Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So now we'll come to our Jaiva Dharma, Falshruti. What day is it today? It's Wednesday. Yes, I said the date, Wednesday, and the day 7th, but I didn't say the day. Today is Wednesday the 7th. Okay. So every Wednesday, we do the last 5. And every Saturday, we do the last 5. So this is how I'm remembering which verses we're up to. So we're on to page 831. Jaiva Dhamma Pateshe Shuddha Bhakti Hoy. Jaiva Dhamma Napadile Kabe Bhakti Noy. One who reads Jaiva Dhamma with faithful deliberation will surely attain Shuddha Bhakti, but one who does not read Jaiva Dhamma can never attain Bhakti. So very simple, very straightforward. Rupanuga Abhiman Pate Trita Hoy. Jaiva Dhamma Vimukha Ke Dharma Hine Koi. Faithfully reading Jaiva Dhamma will surely strengthen one's abhiman as a Rupanuga, follower of Rupa Goswami. One who is averse to reading Jaiva Dhamma is certainly devoid of religious principles. So if ever you hear anybody having any objection to reading Jaiva Dhamma, because apparently Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada didn't translate it or something of that nature, that is completely bogus. Even though Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is mentioned in his Chaitanya Charitamrita and in different places, we should read this book, Jaiva Dhamma, 100%. Yava Jivane Jai Pade Jaiva Dharma Bhaktiman Sejana Brita Jnana Karma. One who faithfully reads Jaiva Dharma throughout his entire life will be endowed with bhakti and will surely realize the futility of jnana and karma. So this is the promise, the Satya Sankalpa from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We will achieve Shuddha Bhakti. Krishnera Ramana Seva Labhi Senara Seva Sukhi Magnaraha Sada Krishna Para. Such a man, being fully devoted to Sri Sri Radha Krishna Yugal Kishore, and having attained their Amal Prem Seva, remains forever merged in the bliss of such immaculate loving service. So this is the conclusion of his Falshruti, that if we dedicate our lives to always incorporating this Jaiva Dharma in our schedule and program, somehow or other, remembering, hearing, chanting it somehow, then we will be successful. So we come back to chapter 10, and today I was reading the beautiful notes that were written actually by Navadweep Prabhu. He was a scholar who translated the first 12 chapters of this Jaiva Dharma, and he got right into it very deeply. So he's describing the different meanings of the names of all the different personalities in each chapter. And for example, it's on the WhatsApp, the explanation. And for example, this personality, Hari Hara, that we hear to begin with, he explains how Harihara is actually confused about his identity because Hari represents Krishna and Hara represents Lord Shiva. So he's like in a quagmire between the two. He's not fully faithful to the Vaishnava principles, and he follows the Panchopashana. The Panchopashana we discussed yesterday, that's Surya Dev, Ganesh, Shakti or Durgama, Vishnu, and Shivji, these five. So actually, they only use these five to attain mukti. Their goal is mukti. They fundamentally, because Nyaya Shastra, that this Nyaya Ratna, he is a great proponent of this Nyaya Shastra, and that ultimately is focused on mukti, on the impersonal Brahman. This is why he doesn't like to hear anything about religion. In the beginning, we discussed yesterday, but now they've come today to talk about the authenticity or the antiquity, the what is the nature of this Vaishnava philosophy, because it seems like it's a new thing, and in one sense, it's like Mahaprabhu invigorated the highest principles into the Gaudiya line. This philosophy has been present since the dawn of creation. Lord Brahma, he spoke these same verses in the Bhagavatam, the Chatushloki verses. So this has come from that time. So its history is from the beginning is endless. It's eternal in that sense, in the material world, because it is eternal. It's about the eternal dharma of the jiva and soul. It's not sectarian in any sort of way at all. So this is what Vaishnavadas is going to explain. But I'm just reiterating a little bit of the history from looking at the explanation in our notes that are on the line. It's very good. So now these two personalities, they've come to challenge the Vaishnavas who don't like to debate, but still it's as if the credibility of the Vaishnava tradition has been put on the line, so they have to respond. But more than that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wants to answer this question because there's many smartas living here in Bengal in particular who don't understand these truths. They are focusing on mukti. They worship Durgama because ultimately they want mukti. This is their goal. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is addressing a very large audience here in his putting down this all the chapters are addressing um, the what do you call obscurities of Vaishnavism at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There's so much darkness was there. So all of these places where the general populace are having problems with accepting Vaishnavism, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to purify and reveal through this Shastra. So this is giving us great Shastric clarity on our faith in Vaishnavism. It's so supportive. We never know who we might meet in the world who wants to know the answers to these questions. And for our own selves, if we have any doubt about the um, antiquity of Vaishnavism. Because It was at a certain level until Mahaprabhu advented, and then he infused it with the mood of Rag Marg. But prior to that, Rag Marg hadn't been opened out, so to speak. It was there subliminally, but it wasn't um, strongly externalized. But Mahaprabhu, he brought it out. So they are thinking, because this historically, we heard just yesterday, it was only 100 years ago, before this conversation we're reading now, that Mahaprabhu was present. So it seems very recent. So this is the history that we're looking at now. We're trying to understand this history of Vaishnavism. And it seems that it just began 100 years ago with Mahaprabhu's advent. But it's going to be explained that it began much more before that. So I'll start at the top of page 222. Nyaya said, "We have one or two questions to ask, and we would like you to answer them." When Paramahamsa Babaji Mahashai heard this request, he summoned Sri Vaishnavadas Babaji Mahashai to join them. When Vaishnavadas Babaji arrived, he offered pranam to Paramahamsa Babaji and sat next to him. Within a short while, a small group of Vaishnavas had gathered. Nyayaratna Mahashai then asked his question, "Please tell us whether the Vaishnava religion is ancient or modern." He thinks they're going to catch the Vaishnavas out. He thinks they're going to defeat him. Paramahamsa Babaji Mahashai requested Vaishnava Das to respond in a peaceful yet grave tone of voice. Vaishnava Das said, "The Vaishnava Dharma is Sanatan, everlasting and Nitya, eternal, because it begins even before the advent of Lord Brahma. It's always been in existence. It's the understanding of the relationship between the Jiva and Krishna and the external energy. So it's eternal, it's everlasting." Nyayaratna, I see that there are two types of Vaishnava Dharma. One maintains that the Paratattva, known as Brahm, is formless and devoid of qualities. However, since there is no question of worshipping a formless object, sadhaks first imagine Brahm to have some form, and then they worship that. This worship is only needed to purify the heart, and when the heart is purified, knowledge of the formless Brahm arises. That is a big sentence. That's a big statement, because this is what most of the smarters believe. They believe that they might have a form of Durgama, for example, but only with the purpose of achieving the formless form of the Lord. They only utilize it for that purpose, not to actually embrace the real form of the Lord. They don't believe in the real form of the Lord. They believe the Lord is formless, like Mukti, like Brahman. Brahman has no form, it's just the energy of the Lord. At that point, there is no longer any need to continue the worship of form. The forms of Radha and Krishna, Ram and Nrsimha are all imaginary and are byproducts of Maya. When one worships these imaginary forms, knowledge of Brahm gradually awakens. So they're very stubbornly holding to the idea that the formless manifestation of the Brahmajyoti, the impersonal Brahman, is that place of highest worship, mukti, because it's about the jiva attaining something. He doesn't have to give love. He doesn't have to serve anything. It's a selfishly motivated ultimate objective, just to be immersed in shantaras with no difficulty, no problem. Na sochati, na kanchati. When one worships these imaginary forms, knowledge of Brahm gradually awakens. Among worshippers of the five deities, Panchopashika, those who worship the deity of Vishnu and recite Vishnu mantras with this attitude consider themselves Vaishnavas. This is completely bogus, right? They worship the Vishnu with a Vishnu mantra, like Harihara. Harihara himself. He is thinking he's a Vaishnava, but actually he worships the Panchopashana with the objective to merge into the impersonal Brahman. That's his objective. This is not a Vaishnava, truly. In the second type of Vaishnava Dham, Bhagavan Vishnu, Ram, or Krishna is accepted as Parabrahm, possessing eternal forms. When the sadhak worships one of these particular forms with the corresponding mantras, he obtains eternal knowledge of the specific deity whom he worships and receives the mercy of that deity. According to this view, the doctrine of impersonalism is Mayavad, which is a misconception that Sankar has propagated. Now tell us which of these two types of Vaishnavism is everlasting and eternal. So he hasn't quite got it right. The second time, he's almost got it right, but not quite. Vaishnava Das. The second of these is the real Vaishnava Dharma, and it is eternal. The other is Vaishnava Dharma in name only. In reality, this pseudo Vaishnava Dharma is opposed to real Vaishnava Dharma. It is temporary and has originated from Mayavad doctrine. Nyayaratna. I understand that in your opinion, you see, he's saying it's his opinion only. The only true Vaishnava Dharma is the doctrine that you have received from Chaitanya Dev. You do not accept that the worship of Radha and Krishna, Ram or Nrsimha constitutes Vaishnava Dharma and in and of itself. You only accept the worship of Radha and Krishna or other deities as Vaishnava Dharma if it is conducted in accordance with the ideology of Chaitanya. Is this not so? It is a fine idea, but how can you claim that this type of Vaishnava Dharma is eternal? In other words, if this mood of Mahaprabhu, that Mahaprabhu has manifested and given this teachings, especially in Shikshastikam, etc., is something happened. I just got to read. Oh, missed it. Couldn't read that post. I hope it's all still operating. The Wi-Fi has been a little bit shaky lately. You can send me a message if it's not good. He's imagining that the teachings of Mahaprabhu, which were so radical in accepting general people as qualified recipients of Krishna's mercy, this was unheard of before. Okay, everything's good. So Mahaprabhu has added such a speciality to this Vaishnava line, and they are considering that this is the beginning of Vaishnavism. You see, you understand the history. You're getting the picture. So this what has to be explained here. Vaishnavadas. This type of Vaishnavadam is taught throughout the Vedic Shastra, and it is instructed in all the Smriti Shastras. All the Vedic histories sing the glories of this Vaishnavadam. So he's just substantiating that. This Vaishnavadam is eternal. Nyayaratna. It is obvious that Chaitanya Dev is the pioneer of this doctrine, but he appeared less than 150 years ago. So how can it be eternal? He doesn't understand that Mahaprabhu has come into this line. He's come into this Brahma Madhva Gaudiya line. Mahaprabhu has advented in this sampradaya that was already existing from Lord Brahma. It was already there. But he infused a new understanding of the absolute reality because he's Krishna himself. And in principle, what they object to, these smarters, is that you're distributing it to everybody. They had felt it was exclusively their property, so they could charge people. They would make a living out of being a Brahmin. So now they're actually losing their living. They're losing their high respect and regard in society. This is why they're unhappy all over. And they're still unhappy today. Vaishnavadas. This Vaishnavadam has been in existence from the very moment of the Jiva's appearance. The Jivas are anadi because they have no beginning in material time. We began in the Brahman. That's where we were conceived. And there's no time. That's why we are eternal. We're coming from an eternal place, literally. but we're coming into the material world. Originally, we were in that eternal realm of like the Brahmand area. That is where we manifested from until that desire to enjoy or that desire to love rose in the heart. And at that time, we had the choice to either focus on our service to Krishna or our service to ourselves. And at that time, then we came into the body of Mahavishnu. Then we all manifested in the glance of Mahavishnu into the Pradhan, the Udara Shakti, the womb of Durga Ma, etc. That's the whole long story. Begin. This Vaishnava Dham has been in existence from the very moment of the Jiva's appearance. The Jivas are anadi because they have no beginning in material time. No, in that Brahmajyoti, it's not material time. Therefore, the constitutional function of the Jivas, known as Jaiva Dharma or Vaishnava Dharma, is also anadi. This would be astonishing to someone like Nyayaratna. They hadn't considered the transcendental nature of the Jiva. We are transcendental. We've come from a transcendental place, but we have become grossly covered over due to our desire to become like Krishna, and we'll never be like Krishna. We can never usurp his position. However hard we try, we'll always remain eternal until the transcendental connection comes to take us into that transcendental kingdom. Therefore, the constitutional function of the jivas, known as Jaiva Dharma or Vaishnava Dharma, is also anadi, eternal. Brahma is the first jiva to take birth in the universe. As soon as he appeared, the Vedic sound vibration, which is the basis of Vaishnava Dharma, also became manifested. This is recorded in the four essential shlokas of Srimad Bhagavatam 2, 9, 33 to 36, known as the Chatushloki. This is also mentioned in the Mundaka Upanishad, Brahma Devanam Pratama Sambhuva Vishvasya Kartya Bhuvanasya Gopta Sa Brahm Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtam Atharvaya Jyesta Putraya Praha. Brahma, who is the first of all the devas, and who appeared from the lotus that sprouted from the navel of Bhagavan, is the creator of the universe and the maintainer of all living entities. He imparted Brahma Vidya, which is the basis for all other knowledge, unto his eldest son, Atharva. So we're going right. He wanted to know about the history. This is the history. We'll see what he makes of it. The Rig Veda Samhita 122.20 mentions the instructions of this Brahma Vidya. Tad Vishno Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suryaha Dviva Chakshu Atatam. The Gyani Gyans, pure Vaishnavas, always behold the supreme abode of Bhagavan Sri Vishnu, just as the unobstructed eye sees the sun within the sky. It is said in the Kutta Upanishad, Vishnu Yat Paramam Padam, only the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Vishnu is the highest attainment. Only the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Vishnu is the highest attainment. He's just cutting to shreds straight away this Panchopashana philosophy, which Harihara and Nyayaratna support. They don't know, they're just in ignorance. They haven't been exposed to these Vaishnava truths. Therefore, they have concluded what they've concluded. It's not that they're bad people or anything like that. They just haven't been educated. We should understand their habits are probably very sattvic and pure. They're not envious. They just are in ignorance. So they should be given mercy. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur will demonstrate this. The Svetasvarta Upanishad says, Sarvatisha Udavam Adas Cha Tirak Prakyashyam Brajate Yad Van Vanadavam Evam Sa Devo Bhagavan Varenyo Yoni Swabhavan Atita Stya Eka. Bhagavan is the supreme person and the original source of all the devas. He is the supreme object of worship and is one without a second. Just as the sun shines radiantly, illuminating all directions, upwards, downwards, and on all sides, so Bhagavan regulates material nature, which is the origin of all different species of life. He's absolutely confirming what is Krishna Tattva here, because these two personalities, they need to hear this. We need to hear this. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur was giving it to us. It is said in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahm, Yo Veda Nihitam Guyam Parame Vyoman, So Shnute Sarvam Kamam Saha Brahmana Vipaschita. Paratattva Brahm is the embodiment of truth, knowledge, and eternity. Although that Parabrahm is situated in the spiritual sky, he is hidden in the sky of the hearts of all living entities. One who knows Ishvara, who is situated within as the indwelling supersoul, attains the consummation of all his desires in contact with that all-knowing Ishvara. How beautiful. These verses are so beautiful that he's giving. Nyaya the Rig Veda states, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. They see the supreme abode of Vishnu. How can you say that this doesn't refer to the Vaishnava Dharma that is included in the Mayavad doctrine? Vaishnava Das. Actually, this is going to go into quite a discussion, so I don't want to go over. I'll just read the next paragraph. Vaishnava Das. The Vaishnava Dharma that is included within the scope of Mayavad rejects the conception of eternal servitorship to Bhagavan. He's referencing, if you chant the Vishnu mantra, and Vaishnava Das has already said that this is actually ultimately a Mayavad conception, because you want to merge into the Brahman. It's not giving the personal context. So this is his question, that if the Rig Veda is saying that they see the supreme abode of Vishnu, how do you know that that's the abode of the form of Vishnu, or is it the impersonal form of Vishnu? This is what he's questioning. Understand? The Vaishnava Dharma that is included within the scope of Mayavad rejects the conception of eternal servitorship to Bhagavan. They don't serve. Serving is the symptom of love. The Mayavad doesn't love. He doesn't serve. He's self-serving. He's not serving he's not serving anything external. So he doesn't have love. He has self-love, which will put him into the Brahman conception. The Mayavadis believe that when the sadhak acquires knowledge, he attains the status of Brahm. However, where is the question of service if one becomes Brahm? It is said in the Kata Upanishad, this is what I just said. Where is the service if you become Brahm? Nyaya matma pravachena labhyo na medya na bahuna shrutena yam evaisya vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisa atma vivrunate tanum svam. That Paramatma Parabrahm cannot be attained by delivering learned discourses, by applying one's intelligence, or even by hearing the Vedas extensively. That Paramatma is attainable only by one upon whom he bestows his mercy. Since the Paramatma is very close by, he reveals his own form. How beautiful. You understand that? It's so beautiful. Only he will reveal him for his form. We said so many times, you can't crash the gates of heaven by your material prowess or your material intellect or strength. It has to be mercifully bestowed by our Guru Vargya. The only true religion is the constitutional function of service and surrender. There is no other means to attain Bhagavan's mercy and thus see his eternal form. Bhagavan, knowledge of Brahm, will not enable one to attain darshan of Bhagavan's eternal form. We can understand from this categorical Vedic statement that pure Vaishnava Dharma is founded upon the Vedas. All the Vedas sanction that the Vaishnava Dharma that Sriman Mahaprabhu all the Vedas sanction the Vaishnava Dharma that Sriman Mahaprabhu taught. There is no room for doubt in this regard. So we'll stop there for today. But this is very beautiful, very powerful. Vaishnava Das is really giving, because he's able to, because these two people are educated to some degree in the precepts of scripture. Even though it's a Mayavad scripture and a Mayavad doctrine they've been holding, which is the attainment of mukti, still their minds are reasonably steady. So he can give them conclusive knowledge in this regard. You couldn't say this sort of knowledge to some idiot on the street who's just like a hedonistic enjoyer. They wouldn't understand what you're talking about. But these two Brahmins, they can. They can understand this knowledge. They can understand Shastra. When they're hearing the quotes of Shastra, it registers with them. They acknowledge. They know the background. Okay. Very beautiful. So we'll continue tomorrow. Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ramo Ramo Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaura Hari Bol Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhavevcha Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Jaiva Dhamma Ki Jai